but we're on Facebook Live for sure tonight. So we do have some special guests in the studio tonight. We have Soraya Diassi Coffelt. She is running for the governor, and she's brought her running mate with her, Dwight Nicholson. He is going to be hopefully the lieutenant governor. Welcome to our studio here. How you guys doing tonight?
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's great being here.
All right, good, man, good. So you guys are running again, and well, at least you are.
I
and
am,
you have a new running mate with you this year.
Yes.
So.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about that too.
Okay. Okay. Well, why don't we just start there then?
Yes.
Tell us about you, and just kind of we'll go from there.
Yes. Well, first to address. Of course, I ran in 2014 as an independent candidate. And back then in 2014, the law did provide for persons from different party registrations to run together. If you recall, the supervisor of elections had stopped John Canegata and I from running together. He's a Republican, I'm an independent, and we took the matter to court. We won. But then after this governor was elected, he made sure that our local law was changed.
Oh, okay.
So that you have to be now registered to the same party, or in our case, no party as independents.
Okay.
So that's why John Canegata is not joining me.
Okay. Okay.
I want to make that clear.
Okay. Okay. So how did you guys come about? How did the whole process? I'm always intrigued, especially this year, with some of the running mates that are being picked.
Yes.
So how did this come about?
Yes. Well, I'll start it off. I met Dwight in the 2014 campaign trail.
Okay.
And I believe it was at the debate at Woodson Junior High School.
Okay.
And he is... He and I have many similar things in our background.
Okay.
We come from small business owners as
Okay.
parents. I'm a second generation small business owner. My parents owned a small business in St. Thomas, on St. Croix, and on Tortola.
Okay.
And his parents as well own
Okay.
a small business. It's DV Fabrics
Okay.
on St. Croix. We both went away to school, got educated, and came back home.
Okay.
And we want to give back to the community. And we have a lot of very good ideas, but one of the most important is public service. And Dwight has a line to take self-service out of public service. We want to serve. We
Okay.
truly are in there because we want to serve the people of the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
And we're not in there for our own acclaim or for what we can get. It's rather sacrificing and doing what we believe is in the best interests of the people of the Virgin Islands.
Okay. So real quick, as we go back to 2014, have you been campaigning a little bit
Since 2014?
since 2014?
Well, I announced in May of last year that
Okay.
I was running.
Okay.
And before that, I've continued to be out and about in the public. I'm a children's author. I've written 5 children's books, and
Okay.
I've been out there selling them and promoting them, of course.
Okay.
So I've kept my pulse on what's happening in the community.
Okay.
Very active in various organizations. I'm a Rotarian.
Okay.
And I love giving back to the community. So, and I do many different things. For example, my Rotary Club on St. Thomas supports a group at Shalamaya High School called
Okay.
the Interact Group. And I work with them in the past, and we've done a lot of volunteer work picking up trash. So I've done many, many things.
Yes.
I continue to do.
Okay. Okay. So from your perspective, Dwight,
Yes, sir.
the sort of connection here between the both of you guys. I mean, so obviously you approached him,
Yes.
and he said yes. Or what did you say?
Well, of course, at first, there was a discussion.
Okay.
I was very thrilled that she had asked me.
Okay.
But-
Did you know in advance, or was anybody like, they're checking you out, or did you
No, I did not know in advance.
Okay.
Well, were you running for senator last in 2014 that time, right?
Yes.
Yes, I actually began running for Senate. I ran for Senate 2 times before. I
Okay.
began in 2008.
Okay.
And that was actually because of an act. I don't know if I should get into that, but basically it was Act 6905
Okay.
that had passed in 2006. I believe that was a very self-serving bill that was passed because it was passed in the midnight hour, in an emergency session.
Okay.
In the change of one administration to the next.
Okay.
That ballooned the senatorial and gubernatorial salaries as well as reducing their retirement. benefits.
Okay.
So
to collect.
So this boosts your interest immediately to
So basically, it was just so outrageous to me
yes,
that I had to run and basically saying that I'm looking to repeal that.
Okay.
So that was when I began to run.
Okay.
And that continues to be one of our main issues. We believe that law, as he said, was very self-serving.
Okay.
Right.
And that's why we want to take self-service out
Out
of
of
public
public
service.
service.
Yes, and repeal that law, cutting back the salaries of the senators and the governor and lieutenant governor. We can't leave those two positions out
Okay.
because it was also a tremendous increase for the governor and lieutenant governor and their salaries.
Okay.
So we believe that those should be cut back significantly. We need to look at what other jurisdictions have done, what their salaries are,
Okay.
and give a salary that's fair.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So getting back to the connection there.
Yeah. So basically, I met her in 2014 on the campaign trail,
Mhm.
and of course, being approached this time, we had a discussion about just to make sure the values were
Okay.
in sync,
Okay.
etc. And then I jumped and said, yes, let's go for it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, did you see something in him?
What's interesting is that people say the same thing about me and him, that we're too soft-spoken. And how can we be good leaders if we're soft-spoken? And we both have the same philosophy. We're both well-educated. We have a lot of experience. We have a lot of knowledge. And we don't believe that you have to be out there yelling.
Okay.
And I've been told I needed to be more vocal when I speak, like some other female senators.
Okay.
And I don't believe that, and he doesn't believe it. And so we believe that talking to people and reasoning with them and working with them is much nicer than raising our voices
yelling,
and
yeah.
yelling and calling people names.
Okay.
That's not our style
Okay.
at all. And I, as a matter of fact, I'm a little bit more outspoken because I've been on the campaign trail more than he has.
Okay.
But I'm not going to go into calling people names,
Yes.
and that's not our style at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely shouldn't be.
Because
That's-
definitely for any situation, you should be able to talk to and have a discussion.
Mhm.
You shouldn't have a yelling match to hurt your ears, etc. Lose your voice,
Yes.
etc. We should be able to have a calm discussion
Okay.
to come to a resolution.
Okay.
Of the matter.
Okay. So did you ever have any dreams of being, asked to be lieutenant governor?
How you mean?
Do you ever have any dreams that, as a young boy, young man, you're in high school, college, one day I want to be governor or lieutenant governor? I mean, did you have any visions of that, or
Yes. I actually have had some visions.
Okay.
I guess with some friends, I would say that as they went away to college, I said, if I should run for governor,
Okay.
then you have to come back and run as lieutenant governor.
Okay. Okay, I got you.
So I have that.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
It was just
Yeah,
more.
it's just like when you're a young boy, you sort of envision yourself being a fireman, and so just kind of the same kind of concept here, with being asked to be lieutenant governor. So you guys are ready. You've been on the trail. I've been following your posts on Facebook. You're kind of out there talking to people. You're at
Yes.
the market and here
Yes.
and everywhere, just getting,
Yes.
I guess, the pulse of what people are saying, what's happening, what's not happening, and just so how is the community at large responding to you guys?
It's really interesting because our slogan is putting the people first. How would you know how the people are feeling and what you can then champion as an issue unless you talk to the people? And that's what we've been doing.
Okay.
And spending a lot of time doing that. So I actually go out, and Dwight has started to join me more and more into going out and talking to people.
Okay.
And as a lawyer, I'm a trained listener, and as a judge, a former judge, I'm a trained listener, because in the courtroom, a judge sits there and is supposed to listen. Some judges are more active in questioning witnesses, and that's what I'll do. People will tell me something, and I'll ask them questions to follow up.
Okay.
But I'm a trained listener, and I always ask people how things are going, and then I want to get into the nitty-gritty, just not an answer. Oh, fine, things are going fine, and just to keep probing and listening and getting the truth. And people are very open when they hear your concern. They see that I'm genuine in my questions. I'm not just being phony and want to talk to them. So and then they'll open up.
Okay.
And that's how we know really what's happening, what's going on with the people.
So what are you hearing when you guys are out on? But what are you hearing? What's the
our
biggest?
People are really hurting.
Okay.
And they've been hurting for a long time. The hurricanes have of course exacerbated the pain.
Okay.
But they're really hurting, and it's as if people go through their lives day to day.
Okay.
And sometimes it's been difficult for me to campaign because you're talking to people who are in so much pain and trying to get their roof on their house, or trying to deal with the insurance company and or a medical issue.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to start talking about campaign issues and please support me in the campaign when they're going through so much pain.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's what it has been more difficult for me, because I'm not an in-your-face campaigner. I go out there and I listen to the people, and then when I see that they're suffering from so much pain, then I'm able to say, this is what I want to help you with, and that's why I'm running.
Okay. What about for you? I mean, what is sort of what are folks telling you their concerns are?
There's a variety of concerns of when talking to the different people, and when they look at me, I guess I tell them a little bit about my experience. They seem to get more excited, a little bit more hope that, and they generally seem to look to support what I'm trying to, I guess, bring to the team with Soraya. Okay.
But I mean, more specifically, are people saying to you, man, we're just tired of the roads, we're just tired of WAPA? I mean, what are they saying to you guys? I mean, more specifically, what are they saying? Because that's what I'm saying to you guys. The roads are WAPA. So, what are they saying? What are they saying to you guys?
Many more things. Yes.
You have the roads, you have WAPA, you have
the hospitals.
guns,
the hospital.
the
So just a wide variety of things that people are complaining about.
Yes.
They want to see changed.
Yes.
With the farmers itself, the support, and also with the businesses. Basically government officials basically look at businesses as a pocket to just stick their hand into to try to rectify their mismanagement of funds. Which obviously should not.
Yeah, they put the burden on small business.
Yes.
They put the burden on small business. So let's talk about your platform. You have, I guess, 5 or 6 things that I got off your website that I guess are near and dear, and the things that you're going to try to make a change on.
Yes.
So can you just, we have I printed those out here, but if you could just sort of go from the top and just kind of work your way down.
It's called the VI First Plan, with FIRST an acronym, FIRST.
Okay.
And the vision that I have, it's the same vision from 2014, and I believe when you're giving a vision, the vision doesn't change, but I've matured with the vision. So the vision has always been that we are the economic leader and powerhouse in the Caribbean. That we are the #1 place to live, work, and visit. So it's not a lofty idea, and I compare it to, for example, I studied in China 2 years ago. I joined a group of lawyers and law professors and studied in China for about 5 weeks. And one of the past presidents of China, he had a vision for Shanghai. Shanghai, he said China was a dragon, but Shanghai was the head. And Shanghai, he said Shanghai was going to be made into the Paris of the East. And it was to be the #1 economic power as a city in Asia. And sure enough, within 25 years, Shanghai became that. It has its own stock exchange. It's a beautiful modern city. And so I look at, in my travels, I learn a lot. And I look at what a leader with a vision can do. And that's the vision that I've had for the Virgin Islands. I don't believe that we're 4 little islands just in the Caribbean Sea, that we are the leaders in the Caribbean. And in our past, St. Croix has been a leader. So St. Croix and the Crucians should understand that. So I want to bring that back. And we're a Caribbean people. A lot of my family still are throughout the islands, Antigua, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. All of us to some extent have relatives throughout the Caribbean, but I see us as the economic powerhouse.
Okay.
So first, FIRST is the acronym, and I can start, or Dwight can start. Do you want me to do F and then you do? We can go back and forth, but I guess F is a passion for me. F and T, really. F is to fight for our families, our children's, our fathers and our mothers, and that's dealing with our education system, because we cannot change anything in the Virgin Islands without strengthening our education system.
Okay.
And I've talked about that a lot in the last campaign, and I've more insight, more maturity, and I continue to talk about that.
What's lacking? What's lacking there?
It's the same thing. The lack of literacy, our children not being able to read to grade level, and if you're talking about third graders, when they're tested at the end of third grade, because when they move on to fourth grade, learning changes. It's no longer learning to read, but reading to learn.
Okay.
So that's why they test them at the end of third grade. So over 1/3 of our children don't read to grade level. So they continue to be promoted without the necessary assistance to help them reach grade level.
Okay.
And so by the end of 11th grade, we have over 60% of our students not reading to grade level.
Okay.
So if we don't have students who are graduating who can read, then what is their future like?
Yeah.
And what is our future going to be like? So
Okay.
it's really pushing literacy and the importance of literacy. And then the other passion I have is this career and technical classes that I spoke a lot about in 2014. And I've gotten people now to learn more about it, and you hear more candidates pushing it. But there's a difference between talking about it and really understanding it. And that's what I bring to the forefront, is the understanding of it as a former judge who dealt with, especially our young men coming in the courtroom, who would tell me, Judge, why should I stay in school? I'm not going to college. And they've cut back so much on these career and technical skills classes. So that's what I want to bring back, and with a passion. Of course, we need plumbers and electricians and carpenters, but we need also the classes that are going to teach our people into the next century, which is a technology, medical technology, communications.
Okay.
So I think that's really, really critical. So once we have our education system strengthened, then we can look at developing our economy. And if we look at what's happening now after the hurricanes and all these companies that are coming in, and what are they saying? Our people aren't trained in the basic skills. So if our people aren't trained, we see a lot of outsiders coming in, taking over the good paying jobs. And what are our people really doing? They're getting the menial jobs. And, enough is enough. I want our people to have much better. We deserve much better.
Okay.
So that's what I'm looking at with our children, our fathers and our mothers. And then, especially as a woman and as a mother, we can do a lot more for our after-school programs. And it's not just a place to house our children, but they should be places that are teaching our children. They should be able to do their homework. They should be able to be taught more about computers and help have mentors there. So I see a growth in the after-school programs, and really becoming more like an after school, taking school to another step, and promoting our arts, music, our local dance skills. So there's so much that can be done in after school programs that help parents, because the children get their homework done and they continue to be taught. They're occupied with things that are going to be beneficial to them, and not just on sitting and playing a video game.
Yes.
That's what they do now when they go to their mother's or father's offices. It's as, okay, keep them occupied doing something.
Yeah.
And then the parents have to deal with them when they go home to get their homework done.
Yeah.
But let's have these well thought out, well planned after school programs, and even daycares. And the daycares, you can begin teaching the children how to read. My mother taught me how to read when I was 3 years old. And then I started first grade when I was 4, and I was ahead of all the other students, and I continue to be ahead. And that's what I see, because I take what happened in my personal life and I apply it. And I believe that's the foundation for what I accomplish, is the ability to read and read well. So I see a lot that can be done for our families.
Okay.
That might be small when you think about it, but I think can have a major effect.
Yeah. So the thing that, as far as like, and it's a great approach, but the thing that, so this all sort of comes back to this whole thing of like having funds to sort of fix this? Because what you're saying is great, but are we going to be able to just put something in place at the high schools here with no money or little money? If you want to bring these technical trainings back into high school, I mean, you probably have to build some more buildings and the whole concept of that. I mean, but it all comes back to, do we have the funding?
Well, I can give you an example for my own Rotary Club in St. Thomas. We have raised money, almost $100,000, and have donated that to the Charlotte Maya auto mechanic program. So
Okay.
they purchased a lot of equipment as a result of the fundraisers and the money that we donated.
Okay.
You have a lot of nonprofits who are eager, who are out there raising money and want to continue to do that.
Okay.
And then as a governor who will be cutting back on her salary, on the lieutenant governor's salary, selling most of the 30 vehicles that the governor's office has, certainly the armored vehicles, and having fuel-efficient vehicles, not needing a chef, not needing to travel first class or private jets.
Okay.
And cutting back on all that waste and frivolous use of money, and it'll be done throughout the departments. We'll be saving a lot of money. That's
Okay.
how we will start off, going
Okay.
in and starting to cut back on the waste and the misuse and abuse of the money.
Okay.
So we'll have extra money. But I believe that we'll have a lot of the nonprofits contributing, and I'm going to reach out to those who have retired and who want to come back and help.
Okay.
And I'll say, volunteer. I'm a volunteer person. I do a lot of community service. And once they know that a governor comes and is genuine and is cutting back themselves on their own salary and their what frills they can get, then I think we will have more volunteerism.
Okay.
So we can't keep saying we don't have the money, we don't have the money. As a judge, over 15 years ago, I would sit in the courtroom dealing with these young juvenile delinquents just to hear persons from human services who are assigned by law to work with the juveniles tell me, Judge, we don't have the money, we don't have the money. And the same thing with the people who are mentally ill. Judge, we don't have the money. So now we're 15 or 20 years later and we don't have the money, but how long are we going to keep saying we don't have the money? We have to step up to the plate and think outside the box. So if we don't have the money, let's see where we can get it, and then let's see what we can do, and just implore the people in the community, come and help us.
Okay. Okay.
Dwight, your previous job was with WAPA, right? You are an engineer by trade, right?
Yes.
Okay. If this was the manifesto and you become lieutenant governor, how can our energy costs be dropped here in the Virgin Islands for businesses and for our
The residentials.
for the residents? How do you foresee this happening?
Well, basically, the problem that has been happening with WAPA, like over the years, is due to funding. Basically, they would provide a service, electricity to, more particular to the government,
Right.
and they will not pay their bill. So now, if they're not paying the bill, we're having struggles trying to maintain the units for their, for proper efficiency. So
And we're
obviously-
talking about $50 million a current amount. Over $50
Right.
million is owed by the government to WAPA. So it's not a little bit of money.
Yeah, it's a big chunk. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of my primary roles in WAPA is to perform calculations on our generating units, to make sure that they're performing, as best as they can, to minimize the cost to the people.
Right.
But of course, if we don't have the funding for when I make a suggestion, okay, we need to, do overhaul, etc. at this time, and we don't have the money, that we have to delay it, then basically it's worse performance on our generating equipment.
Okay. Okay.
So basically saying that we have to make sure that our funding, the responsibility of our individuals and that's out there and for WAPA himself to maintain have to be met. The both parties have to be, well, not both, but I guess the government have to pay WAPA their bill. They end to keep y'all running, to keep us running. And then we don't have to pay the consumers, it don't come back on our end.
Exactly. So basically, when you have obviously worse operating units, then
Right.
obviously the price goes up for
Mm.
all of
For
us,
more-
and still the government ain't paying. So
Right.
so it's just a cycle of
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a vicious cycle.
Yes,
In a
yes,
sense.
yes,
In a
yes.
sense.
So let me ask you this now. We're hereby surrounded by these beautiful waters here. I never hear anybody saying, well, let me try to tap into the sea to see if we could get some kind of energy build up. We have some islands down the road there, like in, I think it's Guadeloupe. They produce volcanic electronics. I don't know how, I know the name, but I know it comes from a
Yes.
volcano. And what I'm trying to say, alternative energy.
Geothermal energy.
Right, exactly. Alternative energy. Why are we not tapping into these resources here in the territory?
Basically, for the resources that we tap into, I know they've done different studies to see the feasibility for different energies that they would bring here.
Right.
One of the main things that we can do is more solar energy, perhaps microgrids, etc.
Right.
That's simple. Now the ocean energy, that's OTEC, ocean dealing with currents,
Right.
etc. The infrastructure is fairly massive with a little rate of return of energy. It's not to say that it can't be done, but it is fairly costly to try to go that route. For the geothermal, we don't have, let's say, like a volcano or active.
Thank God. We don't need that.
I was just thinking about bringing in a pipeline,
Yes,
you know what I
yes.
mean?
Because
Running it-
that would be excellent, because they have that, I believe, on island. Let's say in the active volcano they have in Montserrat.
Right.
And also in Hawaii, they have this type of power. I mean, it's a great free source, a lot of heat energy to produce a lot of power. From that, that would be great. But for that piece, it's a little difficult to get here.
So what about the wind? Have they not even? I mean, I've seen certain like UVI, the tech park, they were powered by the wind. Some other communities also had some wind
Turbines.
some turbines.
Yeah.
So why aren't we trying to tap into these solar? I mean, into the natural resources instead of just these old dinosaur fossil fuels that we keep using and
Yes,
keep
and are
going
so expensive.
and also harmful to the atmosphere and to us humans.
And I love wind power because it's almost always a breeze going.
Right, always a breeze.
But one of the I guess the cons that or the stumbling blocks that we usually enter into is zoning. Let's say we don't have to use land, or you take up resources on land to put up wind turbines.
Right.
We can use the sea, like they have, often the Scandinavian countries
Right.
up in Europe. But of course, we love our coral life, etc. The zoning, environmentalists, etc. It's hard to proceed and to set up the structure.
There's
to-
always some
to
opposition
erect.
to that.
Yeah, and then also how fast the wind or the blades spin. Then all of a sudden you're killing birds, which is obviously another aspect. We don't want to kill wildlife in trying to produce our energy.
Okay.
What
Okay.
we've been doing, instead of having bands come in and paying tens of thousands of dollars to bring in bands, what we've been doing is investing in bringing in consultants. We brought in a team of solar energy consultants, and we had them on various radio stations. We had them at a community forum in St. John. And what we do is we bring them into St. Croix, St. Thomas, and into St. John. So we cover the 3 islands, and we give people the opportunity we did radio shows. And that's what we believe that people need to be hearing. Of course, it's nice to have a band come in. It's very expensive to bring in a band, but I'd rather invest money in teaching and learning, and so our people understand. With the solar energy, I learned so much. It's how inexpensive it is to put in these farms. Even though we see the solar farm here by the federal building, how that
Totally
got destroyed, and the big one in St. Thomas. But what they explained to us was that it was poorly constructed.
Yeah.
And that if they're done properly and the construction is monitored, then they could withstand these Category 5 winds. And one of the people that came in, he actually built a wind farm in Puerto Rico that survived Maria. So it's
okay.
possible to do it, and it's the monitoring of construction, which we will see continue to occur as we have construction projects coming in now because of the federal dollars. and we're going to be doing more and more construction. So we have to be monitoring these construction projects. And if you at all, I don't want to deviate too much, but the last audit of the Public Finance Authority that was done by the U.S. Interior Department and along with our Inspector General, but it showed that there was over $17 million in cost overruns in building 3 schools. So if we look at that, what does that mean? Then construction wasn't being monitored. So $17 million in cost overruns, and then that $17 million is taken away from other projects.
Yeah.
And that's a considerable amount of money. We don't want this to continue to happen.
Yes.
So it's a monitoring of every single project that the government has, and have people that are dedicated. My late husband was a contractor. He would, whenever he had a construction project going, he would be up early in the morning. He'd be the first one on the construction site and be the last one to leave. Why? He was monitoring the construction. He wanted to make sure if you're going to be pouring concrete, how much, he's monitoring the truck, making sure that the correct amount is being poured in, making sure plumbing lines are run properly. Everything is done according to the plans, because we, the people, lose when the construction projects aren't built properly.
It's done poorly, yeah.
And we see that
Time
here.
and time again.
Yes, we look at the fish market. And that was how much money was spent on that. And it's been abandoned. I would say over $2 million on that project, and it never worked from day one.
Yeah.
And in St. Thomas, we have many, many other projects where money is just poured and it seems into black holes. But it's a monitoring of these construction projects, starting with what we were talking about energy with these solar farms, which are very cost effective.
Okay. So you guys in general are in support of alternative energy?
Definitely,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's kind of get back to your platform, and the first thing you were talking about was the fight for our families.
Yes, and then I think I can take I.
Yeah, and I is about igniting the tourism industry.
Okay.
So basically, part of that is advertising,
Yes.
especially like in the northern countries or northern states.
Okay.
Because when I was up in New York, then you see tropical island driving past and Jamaica. So why can't we have St. Thomas, St. Croix on these signs or VI?
So there's not enough of that now?
I have not seen enough like in the northern states. And we don't have to limit it to there, but we can also focus on Latin America, countries, etc., and also perhaps European countries as well.
Okay.
Who I know a lot come down.
Okay.
So we can do better.
Okay.
So are you just focusing on tourism itself? What about medical tourism? What about sports tourism? Is it just a basic tourism you're aiming at, or and
tourism? I guess what he's saying is that is the ships. We associate tourism with ships, but there's medical tourism, there's sports tourism.
Yes.
So if we're able to increase our medical
well.
We have to have good hospitals to have.
Definitely.
Yes.
But I guess for regular tourism, as we talk about ships, I mean, if you guys get in, can you get more ships here?
Well, I think it's a fallacy. We're putting all our marbles into the cruise ship industry.
Okay.
And what has happened is, and I love this quote from Winston Churchill, you can't negotiate with a tiger when your head is in its mouth. And that's what I say is happening with with our cruise ship industry.
Okay.
Because they're a multi-million-dollar industry. Royal Caribbean in 2016, their net profit was over $1 billion. That's their net profit. And that's just one company.
Yeah.
So our head is in the mouth of the tiger, which are these cruise ship industries. So now we have to try to negotiate with them, which is very difficult. But we have to, and as a experienced lawyer, we have to do that. But we just can't think of just cruise ships. We have to think of air tourism. I mean, the passengers coming in. We can be very aggressive going out to get more and more airlines.
What about
that's going to bring the people. If there's a direct flight, that's going to bring the people. Or it's an easy flight, one stop.
Yes.
That's going to bring the people in.
Yeah.
And we're talking about history and culture. St. Croix is filled with that. And what are we doing to promote the history and culture? We were talking about this in the car. My birthday's in late August, and my oldest son lives in D.C., and the Hamilton musical, which has been phenomenally popular. It's been touring the United States. It's going to be in D.C. at the end of August. So my oldest son, come up and I'll buy you, we'll get tickets and we'll attend. You know how much the tickets are? Over $800 for one seat. And that's similar to what it was in New York City when
Yeah.
it ran there. So if they're touring the country and it's Alexander Hamilton and the musical, why aren't we advertising in every single city that they're touring in? And in DC, of course we should be advertising there.
Yeah.
But then we advertise primarily St. Croix, but what is there for a tourist to see in St. Croix about Alexander Hamilton?
Okay.
Where can they go? So all these historical sites have to be developed. Those that exist have to be cleaned up and properly maintained. There has to be a map. So tourists come, they can they can self-tour, or they can have guided
They
tours.
can explore on their own.
Yes. And what about the scenic tour? What has happened with that here? The scenic route. It's
Roads.
Yes, roads. So there's so much that can be done with our culture and history, that our food.
Yeah.
And St. Croix is known for it's just pushing, the button on the culinary arts. So
Yeah.
there's so much that can be done. So it's a diversification of our tourism industry, and not just put all our marbles in the cruise ship industry, which we will continue, of course, and to bring more to St. Croix, but not all of it.
Yeah. What about you guys in favor of, one of the things that I think that we need to do here is we need to have a couple more hotels.
Yes,
I
definitely.
mean, you guys in favor of that? I mean, would there be any opposition?
No.
No. I mean,
No,
so
because definitely, I mean, it's seen that if we actually have more increased flights, where are the people going to stay?
okay. Okay.
We don't really have the capacity to
To hold them.
to hold
to
them.
hold them.
Okay. Because I always say that in St. Thomas, they have way more hotels. They have bigger hotels, and
Yes.
they're getting obviously a lot more people there.
Yes.
But when I compare hotels here and there, they're way ahead as far as
Oh,
hotel.
definitely.
As
There's
far
no
as
doubt
rooms,
about that. Yes.
Rooms.
Yes.
So, in general, you guys are in favor of a couple, at least one nice hotel.
Yes.
Because I just heard the other day, so I don't know if you heard, is the Divi is not reopening until next year.
2019.
Because I'm not even sure why, but I guess they're just having some difficulties
Yes,
there. So
yes.
that's 30, 40 rooms that
Yes.
that aren't being occupied in the casino, and just all the other stuff that could potentially be happening there.
What we're not in favor of is are projects that are going to really trample over our environment.
Okay.
So they need to be environmentally appealing,
Right.
and we don't want 1,000 rooms on a small plots.
Yes.
And intrusive, affecting the environment, the land, the sea, the air. So that's what we're very mindful of.
Okay.
But we definitely are.
Definitely. Okay. So go on with the tourism. Your sort of your mindset with the tourism. Dwight.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, is to obviously increase the advertising.
Okay.
To basically traffic also, and then also with in concert with all the different aspects as well. To have the amount of rooms available so that when we have increased traffic, that people have a place to stay. Also increasing the amount of cruise ships that come into the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
Because of course, as we look at economics as a whole, we look at the Virgin Islands in a circle.
Mhm.
Okay. So now, what is the amount of money that are coming into the VI versus what is going out of the VI?
Okay.
So tourism is one part of money that will be coming into
Coming
the
in.
VI.
Yeah.
And the next part of what's going out of the VI is, of course, the fuel costs, or what we're buying for fuel that's going overseas, etc. So that's
Yeah.
a lot of funds that's going out of the VI.
Yeah. And as far as medical tourism goes, I know Sue, but we were just kind of mentioning that there. So the whole thing with medical tourism is that we got to get the hospital.
Yes, for ourselves, for our people, we have to get
Right.
them.
Yeah, we got to get the
hospitals.
hospital up and running.
Yes, but can you imagine a place where, especially senior citizens, would want to come if we had excellent medical care
Yes.
and have treatment and be out in the sun and be bathing in our beautiful waters? I can't think of a better place that people would want to come for medical tourism. And then you mentioned sports tourism. That is a big promising aspect of tourism. And what's frustrating, and I take it back to the F for fighting for our families, my oldest son, he's an athlete and he loved playing basketball. But here we have most of the year. And what are our young men and women doing? With basketball camps, they're limited to certain months out of the year when they could be playing the whole year. He was an excellent basketball player, but when in the Virgin Islands. But when he went to Florida, and we saw these students playing and practicing, they practice all year long in Florida. And he was up against some really tough competition. And that's what our young people are facing when we could promote so much of the sports here, the basketball, the softball, the swimming.
Yes.
Tim Duncan was a swimmer first before he went into basketball. The tennis. There's so much that we can do here, and we're losing out for our own children learning all these sports and then being able to compete competitively, but then for sports tourism itself.
Okay.
And
Sounds fair.
Even one thing about the sports, like I would love to see more of the, the high school games, etc., televised.
Okay.
So that we can actually see it on TV.
On TV, yeah. I guess the other angle too with the sports tourism, that I guess you could have like the major league teams coming down here for spring break, spring games.
Yes.
But we have to have good places for them to practice at. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's in the cards too. Something that we would hope that if you guys make it in, that we would see something.
Yes, and that's negotiating. And what do lawyers do but negotiate? I always have to bring it back to that.
That's what they do.
Good negotiators. Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we go on here,
the R in first.
That's rebuilding our business community.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and that comes from the small businesses and encouraging our people, making it easy for our people to start their small businesses here, as well as attracting businesses from away.
Okay.
And I'm a small business owner, and as I mentioned, my parents were small business owners. Dwight's family are small business owners, and we can tell you all the problems that small businesses go through in getting a license and then renewing the license. It's very, very difficult. It's very frustrating. I can tell you, I just got a letter to renew a business license for one of our family companies, and it was from the Internal Revenue Bureau, and it said that our application was denied, and it said that we had to come in now to the Internal Revenue Bureau, and it was denied for this reason below, and no reason stated. So what does that mean now? We have to call, we have to go in, we have to find out what's the reason, well, how can we satisfy you? Because we keep records, date stamp copies of everything.
Yes.
So it's just frustrating because now as a business owner, I have to take my time to go and sit down and meet with them, find out what's the reason, first of all, and then try to fulfill that, whatever they're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating. You call, you can't get people, and we see Division of Licensing and Consumer Services is really servicing the people. We should have a one-stop center where people are going in to file for a new license. There are all these different agencies they have to go through, have them all in one area.
Yes.
So you go to that one area and it has representatives from every different government agency.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, you can file the application online. Well, that means you have to have internet. So what happens if you don't have good internet or reliable internet? And so you think, oh, it's online, that's great, but if you don't have internet, you have a problem.
Yeah.
So it's making it much easier, becoming exceptionally business friendly, and that's the same thing that I said back in 2014, becoming exceptionally business friendly.
Okay.
And a lot of it also is promoting the women to start small businesses, seniors, veterans, our young people, and encouraging them to use their unique abilities and talents. And what I've seen as a mother of millennials, a lot of the friends of my sons have come back, and they are very entrepreneurial.
Yes.
Yes, and they may be living with their families, but they have started a new business.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing to see the millennials have so much confidence in their abilities.
Yeah.
So it's making it easy for their age group too. So I want our people to be understanding of what it is to establish a small business and to be successful.
Yeah.
And then it's attracting the businesses from away. For example, you see New York City for many, many years has been advertising that it wants to be the center for actually upstate New York, the new Silicon Valley. And upstate New York, that's where I went to law school. It's very, very cold, a lot of snow. But they're drawing businesses in. They're promoting themselves to be the new Silicon Valley. So what should we have to have a concept that we can now advertise and promote.
Okay.
And with the INGN and the underground networks, et cetera, we should be able to promote that and be a technology center in the Caribbean. But it's advertising so that businesses from away can come in here and, again, be extremely business friendly.
I think the thing with that, and I've always felt this way. The thing with I have a business in the States, a
Yes.
multi-million-dollar business, and Soup and I run this business, and we get approached by you guys. Hey, come down to the Virgin Islands, set up shop here. Bring 20 employees, and we come down here, and then we get here and we get to the airport, and then we're
Yes.
driving on the bad roads, and
Yes.
then the stoplights aren't working. How is that gonna sway me and
Yes.
Soup into
Yes.
wanting to come down here with 20
Yes.
brilliant
Yes.
entrepreneurs, high technical people that come here? I don't get that. That's like a total disconnect.
Yes. That's why as governor and lieutenant governor, you have to be working on many different things at the same time. And women are very good at multitasking. So it's not just one thing you're focusing on. You're focusing on many different things at the same time. And we will have teams of experts working with us, experts in their fields, not family members or people who have supported us and we have to give out favors. When people say, if I support you, what will you give me? I said, I don't know. I'll think about it. What are your qualifications? So we're not promising anybody anything because we want to be free of any type of nepotism or favoritism. We're going to hire people who are experts. So as we deal with all these issues, is us as leaders working with experts in their fields and doing many things at the same time. And yes, approaching that. And Puerto Rico, at one point, I had heard that they would actually have the government officials would actually send representatives to the airport if a company they knew was coming in and was looking at establishing Puerto Rico as a base for their business. They would actually have government officials pick them up at the airport and then walk them through the various licensing requirements and work with them. And that's what I see too, that we become so business friendly, we're welcoming to them, but you have to also be welcoming to your own people.
Yes.
And you can't exclude one over the other.
Okay. Well, and I hope that sort of gets better, because first impressions are what we have.
Yes.
And I know for a fact, if I came down here with my multi-million-dollar business and saw
Yes.
no street lights and no sidewalks, and I got to go back and tell 20 people of my 500 go to St. Croix, they're going to want to know what it's like, and I have to say, well, the roads are bad. We're not going to, there's no aftercare for my kids.
Yes.
I mean, to me, it's just not a good first look.
Yes.
And so we got to clean up.
That's right. The trash is.
Yeah, we got to clean up a
all
lot of
over.
stuff.
Yes.
Just make a lot of things, more presentable. And more, as you say, user friendly.
But we have to do it for ourselves first. We have to do it because we love ourselves first.
But that's the key.
And once
That's
we
the
do
key.
that, then we can be inviting to others. But if we live with trash, we live with
Feel comfortable
streets,
with it.
streets with potholes. And I think to some degree we've accepted that as a way of living, but it's not. And that's what I think we fight
Because we got
against
so
most.
tired. We got so
Yes.
tired of fighting and we
Yes.
keep seeing the same results over and
Yes,
over again. So
yes.
it's like we just you know what? If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't.
Yes.
So we cannot accept the mediocrity
Right,
as the
right,
norm.
right.
You understand
Right,
me? Which is
right.
not.
Right,
But
exactly.
This is all they've seen for the last 40
That's right,
years.
that's right.
So it's
That's
like,
right.
hey, this is the world for me.
That's right. And then we encounter that because they see us, oh, you're just another politician.
Just
And so
coming in.
we're put into that lump of politicians, and we're not. We're outside that group. Why? Because we're regular people. We're Virgin Islanders who love our home, and we're stepping up to the plate because we want to give back. And I understand that people are frustrated. They're very disillusioned. But that doesn't mean that you need to paint us with the politician word. I hate that word because it's very demeaning to me. And and the Crusians have always been, to me, rebels, and have been the leaders who are searching and striving for that better life. And I always say I was born on St. Thomas, but I'm born again on St. Croix, because I have that rebel in me. You know? And it's as if I feel like waking people up and saying, no, we can continue this fight. We can continue this fight. Don't give up. But it becomes very frustrating.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So, Dwight, let me ask you this: if you become lieutenant governor, we live here in a hurricane zone. We had some serious issues after the hurricane with our insurance departments. I know if the lieutenant governor does his department, what would change? What would you do different to make it more friendly for us here to have a more relationship, I guess, with when you're filing a claim or any issues that come about? Again, this thing too that I was hearing too, one of the big issues that on the insurance, you pay your insurance every month.
Yes, yes.
I'm giving you $50 to insure this building for me, but yesterday you never informed me, well, Mr. Carter, your insurance was lower. Whatever the case may be, what's you gonna make? What this department gonna be different, or gonna be handled different to the people to be this less of a stress on the people?
Because basically one of the key points is communication. We have to communicate. Like the insurance companies have to be transparent. They have to communicate. What do they offer? What's the limit they offer? What do they actually cover? And to be sure that what they state, they are being held to it, and to be accountable for what they promise that they'll be covering for. So as Lieutenant Governor, basically I'll be looking at basically auditing and making sure the process is streamlined. That if somebody has a claim, if somebody getting frustrated, that they should be able to have somebody to help them through the process,
Right.
to sit down with them and say, okay, well, what's happening? What type of insurance did you have? They promised you X, Y, Z. See the paperwork, and to make sure that it is, as accommodating as possible for the residents.
Okay, right now we still have residents here that even have heard back from the insurance up to
Yes.
this point, which
Right.
tomorrow will be the first into the hurricane season again.
Yes.
So it's very frustrating for our individual. We have a lot of seniors that's going through on this issue too
yes,
right now.
yes.
Yes.
You understand me? So we want to see a more smoother transition taking place. When a disaster come out, man-made or natural, however it may be, because you can't be expecting me to pay you $20 for the last 20 years, and now when something
That's
come up in the
right.
last year or so, I having all this red tape to go through. I mean, it's very, very, very
Yes, it's very
frustrating.
frustrating.
Yes.
Have you had a chance yet to look at? Some of the duties and responsibilities of the lieutenant governor. I know that insurance,
In banking.
banking, and some of those things.
Yes.
How do you feel dealing with that stuff?
I have no problem with dealing with that stuff.
Okay.
Dealing with that stuff.
Because basically, for my background, I am a problem solver.
Okay.
That I'm a problem solver by nature. My duties and experience. Basically, that's what engineer is about, and I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
And
So you can look at a whole I guess a process.
yeah, basically the whole
And
process.
just look at and try to find things within the process that aren't working, and you can
exactly.
make it more efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So obviously to start, it's like for analysis process, because I'm fairly analytical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say you have, let's say for example, let's say GRS,
Mm-hmm.
and first thing you identify is now where do you want to be? It's not like a regular math equation where you don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we know where we want to be.
Mhm.
We want GRS to be self-sustained, self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of money going in is equal to or greater than what's coming out.
Coming out, yeah.
So now you have to look at, where is all that money coming from? You have to look at the different investments, etc. That's going in with the donations, etc. And now we step back and now we look at, where are we at now?
Mm-hmm.
So what do we have now?
Mm-hmm.
How much debt do we have? What's being accrued? The the amount of contributions that be coming in, who's not contributing, what investments that we have, what's not producing, and then from there, when we get all the different processes, and also identify the factors that affect the processes, then we can start moving forward towards a solution.
Okay.
So when we analyze each piece has like multi different parts. Looking at it, because you have the money portion, you have the personnel portion, you also have the equipment portion. Perhaps if the computer system is like really taking, like, let's say half an hour to start up. Okay, you know what? Let's see if we can get a newer machine.
Yeah.
So it's all little things that we can do to fine tune to make sure the system is efficient. We get all the information as quickly as possible, and we can move forward. At least to have a starting point to reach the goal.
Okay. So as you use GERS as an example, that's another hot button issue here.
Right here, right now.
How do we fix that? How do we make it so that it
we don't lose our money. We don't
Yes.
lose our
the intent
time.
of it is comes to light.
Yes.
Which it should have been from day one, but we find ourselves. So how do we fix that?
Yes.
How do we fix the GRS system?
I attended both town hall meetings. This was before Dwight and I joined. I think they had them in April. And I attended the one in St. Thomas and then the one here to find out what GRS was saying, whether they were saying the same thing on both islands, and then the reaction of the people. So GRS did a very good presentation, in my opinion, and they gave a handout. And they had their experts there. They have many different options that we can look at. And in my opinion, what we need to do is we need to look at what is the money value for each option. Because we can look at an option, but just being lay people, we don't understand, well, how much money actually is needed as of when we're trying to solve the problem. So they have mathematicians, actuaries they're called, and there were two there at the meetings. So we the people, and the governor, lieutenant governor in leading this should have what is the current money requirement or money that will be derived from every option. And then we can analyze it better. And that's what I don't have. We don't have the up-to-date figures. But I think always in analyzing problems, as Dwight said, you have to approach it from many different angles, and then we would have an administration that's very open. We will take it to the people, and then we would have a recommendation. And of course, we'll be working with the Senate. This is all in partnership. We're not going to be out on our own doing our own thing. We have to have a partnership with the Senate. So we would share all our information with them, come up with what we think is the best recommendation, take it to the people, have town halls, and then even if necessary, if there are 2 or 3 options that may be the best, then let the people choose which one is better, because the various options are taxes, a sales tax that would be for GERS, cutting back on benefits. I don't think those who have retired, we can cut back on their pension because it's a legal term, it's already vested, and unless they voluntarily give them up.
Yeah.
So of the various options, how much money will we save or will we benefit from if we choose that option? And then let the people decide
Okay.
with our recommendations as to which one to select.
So this is something that I guess in your vision can be fixed.
Yes, it can. It definitely can.
Okay.
And then the other thing is there's a report that the governor had commissioned. It was paid through the PFA, but not many people know about it. It was a study he commissioned in 2016. I got a copy of that study. It's called the Mercer Report. And in that, it justified what GRS was saying, all their recommendations, but they made another recommendation, which is GRS needs to cut back on its administrative costs. It is very significant. They compared it to Guam, for example, and some other smaller states. But if you look at what Guam is paying, our GRS system back a couple of years ago was at $16 million a year in administrative costs, where Guam was 1/4 of that.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
but still, the conclusion of the report was that was not enough to make the system stable.
Okay.
So you have to do many different things. But there are administrative costs that are very, very high that we need to look at as well.
Okay.
Also, too, there was because you said you was there, right? So
Yes.
I remember. I think they've said that there was a court order that went out, but the government was not fulfilling their part.
Yes.
So my question to you, Soraya, is that what is the degree of separation between street crime and blue collar crime here in the territory,
Yes,
or just
Yes,
on a whole?
yes, yes.
Is there a separation?
I mean, technically there is, but you're right. It's another instance where the government is not paying into GRS, just like the government is not paying WAPA. So now what is happening to GRS? It's languishing. So it's starting to sell off the assets, and that's what came out at the town hall, that they started to sell off their assets. And now we hear that the sale of Carabola is imminent. And what is that going to be at, a fire sale price? And who's going to lose? We, the people, will lose.
Yeah.
Again. So it comes down to the government collecting the money from the employees and not paying it over. Even the loans that the employees have with GRS, holding that money and not paying it over. And we have a lawsuit in St. Croix, I believe, to force the government to pay over the money. We have the lawsuit in St. Thomas in the district court to force the government to also comply with a court order. And sometimes judges are reluctant to force the government to do certain things, but what happens when the government doesn't do it? We, the people, suffer.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. And then the
Okay.
government always comes in and says, we don't have the money, we don't have the money. And so a judge is put in a very difficult situation. If the government doesn't have the money, what is a judge to do?
Yeah.
But the problem is that the government is taking the
They're
money.
raping the people.
Yes.
They continue to rape the people.
Yes, and it's taking the money from the employees'
Yes.
paychecks but not paying it over, which a judge should be able to order a different system.
Okay.
Perhaps the employee not be taken out of the employee's paycheck and the employee paid directly to GRS, or some way to circumvent the government taking it out and taking a hold of that money.
So is this a case of was it robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Yes, yes,
Okay, so this is happening sort of in a sense government wide.
yes.
There's a lot of
yes, exactly.
take the money from the employees
That's
and not being used for its intent,
Yes.
but it's also now being
Yes.
used to, I don't know, whatever else
Yes.
at the time, pay salaries
Yes.
or something along
Yes.
those lines.
And you'll see that for many different very critical funds that are created by law to protect the people that have been raided, like the government insurance fund that is there to protect the people in the event of an insolvency of an insurance company, and that's been raided. So if there's no money in these funds, even the medical malpractice fund that's been raided. I used to represent clients of deceased individuals who sought legal services because their family member died at the hospital, and this medical malpractice fund is supposed to be in existence. It doesn't exist. You file a claim and it goes into a black hole, and then the government says it has no money. So who loses is a poor individual that went in and dies, and then it's the family members, who lose that person. So we, the people, comes right back. We, the people, again, are the ones who suffer because these funds have been raided.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
money should be there, but it isn't there.
Okay.
And that's why one of the big issues in our campaign is this financial accountability and transparency, which is the T in FIRST. And I'm the only candidate talking about fighting corruption. And that was a big issue in the 2014 campaign. It's another big issue here. And I keep trying to educate people. I've become more educated on the issue of corruption, but I try to educate people too, because you see the roads, the condition they're in, you see the schools, you see the hospitals. That's a result of corruption. The money is not coming down to these projects, being used for these projects, or there's mismanagement of the monies. And I always direct people to the website, Transparency International. They are a nonprofit organization throughout the world, and they go into the different countries and investigate corruption, and they have so much on the website to explain about what corruption is, what are the results of corruption, and how to stop it. But unless we're educated and understand, even the potholes in the roads are a result of corruption. We think, it's because we don't have enough money, but why don't we have enough money? It's not that money isn't being sent here, it's the money's not being used for the projects that they're supposed to be used
intended
for.
Yes. Okay.
Or there's corruption in the contracts. There are change orders that make a contract more expensive, and more money is put into a project. And That's the way money is siphoned out, and it doesn't get to the basic projects.
Intended purpose.
Yes, and we, the people, are the ones that suffer. Our children don't have proper schools for which they can go in and learn. Our families can't go in and get proper medical care, on and on and on. And I know that personally because my late husband suffered from Parkinson's disease. And for over 6 years, he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't walk. And I had to be the one. Every time we went into the emergency room, I was right there with him. And I saw how they would make him wait. He's sitting in a wheelchair and he'd have to wait. And I saw what a family member has to go through to get medical services. And thank God we had a neurologist in St. Thomas who was very knowledgeable on Parkinson's. But what if there isn't an expert there? So we go through a lot of trauma dealing with our sick family members who we love a lot and we want to take care of.
Yeah.
But we're frustrated, and all of that is a result of corruption, money not being used for what it should be
Intended purposes.
used for.
Okay.
So Soraya, so how are we going to stem this corruption from happening? How are we going to curtail it? How are we going to stop it? Because again, we just can't continue doing the same thing over and over and over again.
No, but what I say is, once elected, we will establish a VI anti-corruption task force. We'll have local and feds working together, and it has been done all over the United States to fight corruption. And this is public corruption, and with public corruption, you're dealing a lot with white-collar crime.
That's what I'm
and
talking about.
Documentation and bank records, and you have to have experts, forensic experts, just like you have forensics for medical, you have to have forensics now for these, dealing with these type of cases, and you have to have investigators trained in these type of cases. The white-collar crime unit, when I was Attorney General for 10 days, was being done away with almost. The experienced prosecutors in the Department of Justice were being let go or transferred out. We didn't have the investigators we needed. I don't know what the situation is now, but I would go in and make sure that white-collar crime unit is built up. But when we have this anti-corruption task force, which is focusing now on fighting public corruption, and once you start prosecuting at least the top people who've done the worst, then I think that will trickle down. We're not going to go after the petty crime. We want to get the big people.
Yeah.
And once I think we put fear in the people, then we'll see a turnaround. But there's so much that needs to be done, and we have to have this task force that's just dedicated to rooting out corruption. And I believe with this new U.S. attorney now who's in office, and she was fighting corruption before, she understands that concept, and we would be able to work together. But it would be a joint effort, and I don't believe it's going to take that much extra money, because we'll be pulling out investigators now from the police department, from the Attorney General's office, from the federal government to work together. They'll still be paid their salaries, but now they're going to be assigned, and that'll be what their job is.
Yeah, day to day.
Yes, and then the prosecutors to prosecute the crimes. So it's all thinking and planning and sending a message. We're not going to put up with corruption anymore. That's what Singapore did. They elected a new president. He went in very against corruption. It was known for hundreds of years of being a very corrupt economy, and so people will not invest, businesses will not invest in a corrupt area because they don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So they need to plan, and then businesses plan 5-10 years down the road. So once he came in and he started turning things around, now Singapore is, I think, that amongst the top 5 economies in the world. So that fighting corruption is a big issue in turning our economy around. But it has to be done through a task force that is dedicated to rooting out corruption and experienced, as I mentioned, with experts.
So are we talking like billions of dollars here that's being misused, misappropriated, stolen, put in in the ground, in the backyard kind of thing?
Yes. Well, I don't know about the backyard, but maybe accounts overseas. Yes, and sending a message. We're fighting corruption. And that's why when people say, why should they elect us over keeping this current administration in there because they've established a relationship with the federal government, I was told there are more FBI agents here in the Virgin Islands now than there ever was before. So they're coming in. and they're going to say, okay, there's a new sheriff in town or two, a sheriff and an assistant who is anti-corruption, is going to be fighting corruption. That's what the federal government wants to hear.
Yeah.
Who's going to be financially accountable and transparent, following Virgin Islands law. And they will welcome us, because once you start this trying to hide and not want to be financially accountable, that's why you have the FBI agents in here. That's why you have a complete, a continual checking of the money, what's being done with the money.
Okay.
So that I believe the federal government will welcome us, but importantly, the people will welcome us, because it'll be a change.
Yeah, yeah. They'll ultimately see some change.
Yes.
We'll have the money doing what
To
it's
do what it's supposed to
Yes,
do.
yes.
Yeah.
Because
It's not that we don't have enough money. People have to understand that the money's coming in.
exactly.
And that's what scares me so much, because we have billions coming in now. So what's going to be done with that money?
And
So-
then
so-
I don't know if you guys heard or saw about 2 days ago, either 3 days ago, there was a headline. The same thing what we're saying, all these millions coming in here, but yet still the government is looking to go into a bankruptcy.
Yes, they have 2 or 3 days of cash left.
Cash left.
Yes.
I mean, so what are they saying? Is it really, is this a real fact? So I mean, by the time these 2 hurricanes hit, all you're hearing every day, 100 million,
Yes,
2 million,
yes,
5 million.
yes.
And yet still now we come to this headline, to this point, that the government, they only got 3 days of cash left. So what are they really telling us, the people?
Yes.
Is it something real? Is it a game they're playing
Yes,
with our
yes,
lives, or
yes,
what? Well,
yes.
what is really happening?
Yes, and it's
And
campaign
nobody's saying-
season.
nobody's saying anything
no,
to us.
No, and when, for example, the PFA established a website, and there are all these figures on this website, and I'm saying, first of all, is there any documentation to show us that these figures are accurate
Accurate.
from the federal government?
Mm-hmm.
Did they really give us
This-
$5 million for roads? We don't know. Did they give us more money that's not on that
Website.
And plus, you have $5 million for public works. All right. So what are you doing with that money? And if you go back now to 2017, prior to the hurricanes, Gustav James, who was the commissioner of
said-
public works, testified there was like $200
He had the
million
money.
for
The
roads.
money was there.
For
The
roads.
money was there. That's what they said.
And now, nothing was
It
done.
just
We have
disappeared.
potholes all over the
There you
place.
go.
So is it the same money that they're using now to patch up the roads?
Roads.
We don't know. And because this administration is not following Virgin Islands law, it's not transparent, it's not financially accountable. So give us a bunch of figures and put it on a website. And I'm very angry with the media, because they seem to accept this.
Exactly.
And I say, no, probe more.
More.
And have them prove to you that these figures are accurate. And then what are you doing with the money? And we're not getting any of that. So the media has to delve more into these
Yeah, be a
figures.
little more investigative.
Yes, rather than accepting them point, on the face and not inquiring more. And I'm very disappointed with the media just accepting these figures.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. You mentioned too I just saw this. Did they have a new attorney, U.S. attorney?
Yes.
And she was appointed by the president, or
Well, there's a peculiar state of the law where it can, I think it's through the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General, and then somehow she's sworn in by the local judge. I'm not too sure how that works. I haven't studied that law, but she is a U.S. attorney.
Okay.
So she wasn't appointed through the president, which is the normal route, but this process has been followed before,
Okay.
according to news reports.
so who was that before? Who?
It was Ronald Sharp. He was the U.S. attorney before.
Okay.
He was there during the Obama administration, I believe, for about 8 years.
Okay.
Yes.
So
And I
there-
was very disappointed because I don't feel there were enough corruption prosecutions brought. The U.S. attorney in Puerto Rico, it was a woman, and she was very active in the corruption prosecutions. And
Okay.
here, they did go after some people, were successful with some police officers in St. Thomas, and I know there were other prosecutions that they were not successful with, but
Okay.
still, I think there should have been much more. But if the FBI were cut back, as what I was told, you're dealing with, a very thin staff
Yeah.
to help federal prosecutors. But now I told this is the most that are on the ground now here.
Okay.
So, but are they?
But are they doing anything?
That's it.
They're on the ground, but what's happening?
Yes, yes, yes.
I mean, we still waking up every day. We still seeing the same
Yes.
same business as usual.
Yes.
So why are you here?
Yes.
You know, why are you
Well,
really here?
I think I don't know. I mean, I think those guys have to build up a case.
Yes,
They
and
have to
that's the
build-
thing. You
they
have to build up the case.
I mean, yo,
How much time do you need?
it's just,
Exactly.
Yeah, you want
All
things
right.
to hurry up. I know.
Okay.
I understand that.
It's,
Yeah, but-
it's
Yeah.
frustrating in one sense, you know, that
Yeah.
all of them are here, but then it's just like, okay, well, where's the
yeah, I
result?
mean,
We're waiting.
I mean, it's for the last 20 years at least. The saying the GRS has been
Yes.
going down.
Yes.
Going every 4 years, a new administration comes in.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm giving you, we have an agreement, Soraya. I'm going to give you $5 every week to invest in this
Yes.
investment. I'm giving you this money.
In good
Okay?
faith.
In good faith. Okay, and now, Soraya, let me see the books now. I just want to see if you've been doing what I
Yes.
asked you to do. Just, oh, Mr. Carter, I'm sorry, but you're sorry. Well, then, in that case, then somebody gets prosecuted. Somebody
Yes.
goes to jail.
Yes.
Because if I'm doing it out here, if I go to the bank and rob the bank, I'm going to go to
Yes.
jail.
Yes.
Okay? So, I mean, it's just like business as usual. We come in, we change administration, and we go and just keep telling them, okay, in 20 years,
Yes.
in 5 years, this thing's going to
Yes,
crash. And we
yes.
just keep paying in our money, keep paying in this money every day, back and
Yes.
forth. It getting real hard, real tiring for us.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
For the normal Joe out here to
Yes.
just keep doing this thing over and over. And then again, too, you're not even giving me an option. You come like a dictator. You're telling me, well, Mr. Carter, you're working for the government and you have to put your money here.
Yes.
And if you don't do it, you can't work. So then what's my option?
Yes, we were just talking about that in the car. We were talking about it being a Ponzi scheme for the new Virgin Islands employers.
employees.
Yes,
You know, so I mean,
because
let's
you're
get
you're being forced to contribute to this system that's slowly going to be insolvent in 2023, and then you know
You don't get any benefits of
nothing.
you don't
You're
get it.
forced to pay into it.
You have to do it. You have to. You're not giving me no option. I can't go to put in my own saving. I can't put a 401k.
No, no,
I
and
can't
that
do
should be an
nothing.
option. That's a good point. That should be an option.
So you're for something like that?
You
Yes,
have to
definitely,
do it. You have-
definitely,
Once you work for the
because-
government, you
yes.
got to put that money in there. You can't
Yes.
go no other place.
Yes. Plus, what the 401k does, it gives you mobility. Let's say you work for the government for 15 years and you want to go to the States and work somewhere
Exactly.
else. You can
Take
take
that money
that
and
401k goes with you.
Yeah.
It's not just trapped
Got
in
me
this
here
GRS
and you're just
system.
locked in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they're telling me,
yes.
well,
Yeah.
what's my option? Well, Mr. Carter,
You
this
don't have
could
an
do.
option.
I don't have no option.
No,
And
no.
and business goes on as usual. But again, if I go and rob the bank,
Yes.
I'm going to go to jail.
Yes. Yes.
So I hope the people that is listening and understanding what's really taking place
Yes.
over and over again.
Yes,
A systematic, just
Yeah.
we're just changing guards, just
Yes.
changing guards, and nothing's been
what,
done.
what we say is it has to stop. It has to stop. And who gets elected has to deal with these very big problems. There are solutions. And you just have to be, I believe, honest with the people and say, this is what we found. These are the best solutions that we could come up with. If you have better ones,
Let's
bring them
hear
to
it.
us.
Bring it to the table.
Yes. Let's
Yeah.
have a town hall meeting. But unless you do that, the people get frustrated and you just keep blaming you. Oh, that person is a bad person. Let's remove him from the board or her from the board. That's not the answer. You have to deal with these difficult problems. And that's what we're willing to do.
And that's
as
what
best
leaders
we
are,
can.
and that's what
Yes.
leaders do. They make
Yes.
decisions that the normal man would not agree with, but on a whole, it's for everybody.
Yes.
everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
You understand me? So
Yes.
you have to make the decision, and you have to make them now. So are
Yes,
you guys
yes.
willing to make the decision if this was to take place and you was to get in?
Well, so what would
Definitely.
be what would be your
Yes.
What would be the difference, business as usual, for you guys?
well?
It-
Is this like
You.
this is like the first 100-day action item that would see something happening on right
Well,
away?
what we're going to do in the first 100 days is build our teams of experts because we can't manage the government of the
Definitely.
Virgin Islands
Definitely.
ourselves.
Mm.
So we're going to have teams of experts working with us, going into each department and agency, and we're going to start looking at the finances because we have to report back to the people. This is what we found. Because I believe, as we've talked about, we're not being told the truth about the financial situation. So we have to get a grasp of what's happening with the money.
Right.
And And as these teams go in and do their analysis, and we start cutting back on the waste and the fraud. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to build our teams. And I don't know if you saw the interview of Michael Bloomberg earlier this year. Many people looked at it at something negative he said about the governor. But if you listen on to what he said, I felt he was a very successful mayor. But what he says is he spent the first 90 days or 100 days building these teams of people to help him govern. I said, oh my gosh, that's exactly what we're saying we're going to do. And once you spend your time selecting the right people who are experts, then you're going to go forward and have a successful government, because it's impossible. We're not micromanagers and we don't know everything.
Right.
We have to rely on people who are experts in the different fields.
Okay. You made a comment earlier too about the you said that you held the position for 10 days.
Yes.
A few years back. So what's your position on the Attorney General?
Being elected or appointed?
Yes.
Yes. The Attorney General has to be independent. I sway between being elected and being appointed. And why I say that is that I can see if the Attorney General is elected, that there would be a fight between the Attorney General and the governor, because the Attorney General may want to become governor.
Hey, that's his right. That's everybody's right. I mean,
all right.
you show me.
Yes, yeah.
You know?
But what you then have is this feud that's going back and forth. Then I think if we have appointed, then it has to be a law. In addition to the Inspector General, they should be independent as much as possible, meaning they have a longer term than a governor, going into 6-8 years, and that they can only be removed if perhaps you go to the Senate and the Senate votes on removing them. So you take that removal power out of the hands of a governor. So then the Attorney General does not become the governor's lawyer or the governor's puppet.
Yes.
Because the governor has his or her own staff of lawyers.
Right. Exactly.
So you don't need the Attorney General now to be
on his
your
side.
governor.
Yeah.
Yes. Plus, the Attorney General runs a very important department, and being a former judge, I understand what it is to arrest somebody and to actually incarcerate somebody. That's taking away a person's life and liberty.
Yeah.
It's very serious, and you can't use that institution against your political enemies. And that's what I'm afraid of happening because of the control that a governor has over an attorney general.
Okay.
So if you make the appointment long to outlive a governor and make it very hard for a governor to remove the attorney general, that may be a better option than electing. But if the people want to elect, I will accept that. But the Revised Organic Act has to be changed
Okay.
to allow us to make that decision.
Change.
Okay.
Yes.
And who goes in and change the act?
We would have to petition Congress.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
All right.
because we don't have our own
Own
constitution.
constitution.
If we had our own constitution, it'd be different.
How do you feel if do you think things should continue the way it is, or we should be independent and get our own, like we were trying to get for the last?
I feel that we should have our own constitution and stop the infighting. But as long as we're fighting amongst ourselves, this Revised Organic Act that's very colonialistic
Yes.
is what controls us. And it gives a governor too much power. And when you think about it, why does it give a governor too much power? Because we were thought of as a colony. And they
Yes,
were
right.
sending in governors to do what, and giving
Give
them the power
power
to do whatever they
they
want
want.
over us. So that power has continued, but we're not that anymore. We're a modern democratic
Democratic
society
society.
that we should have our own constitution. But each governor learns from the past, and because there's this extreme amount of power, when people hear me talk, it's an abuse of. It's too much power, and governors go in and they abuse the power that's there.
Right.
And I would cut back on that power. People are shocked, but unless you tie the hands of a governor from doing these, having so much power,
Exactly.
power corrupts,
Yeah.
and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's what we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much of it.
Yes.
Too much of it.
It's about 9:30, so I just I want to run through a few things here real quick.
Yes.
Just a couple, just to get some thoughts on. So when we talk about education here, are you guys in favor of higher teacher pay? I know they increased the pay for the police officers to 40.
And that kind of send a bad messages. How you going to increase
Yes.
the law enforcement department and don't increase the education department?
Yeah.
That was a slap in the face. I mean, it was some kind of message they was sent. I don't know what it was, but something ain't right there.
Yeah.
How you guys-
Especially when and nothing against police officers, but they have kids that go to schools here
And
being taught by now teachers that are making way less
Yes.
than police officers. So that's like a bad vibe there.
Right.
So I mean, could you get that equaled out in the first 100 days?
But remember, the increase was originally just for the new police officers. So the
Oh.
older ones there weren't even getting a pay increase.
Wow.
And now
Oh.
they're saying that's supposed to be negotiated through the union, et cetera, et cetera. So I got a lot of feedback from police officers who'd been there 10, 15, 20 years and saying, well, what
They're not
about us?
us. You see
You know,
that
the
is
new ones
again.
get,
Yeah.
yes.
Again.
I didn't
Yes,
know that.
Again.
yes.
So how?
So you have brand new police
Because
officers,
just coming in,
and as opposed to a guy
Yes.
that's been there for 5
Yes.
years.
been in the street for 10 years,
Yes.
and you're gonna get wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Then now,
that's-
so now my morale has gone down. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do my job
That's
because these young
it.
guys
That's
coming in,
it. That's it.
They making the money, so let them do the work.
Yes,
I'm gonna sit
yes,
back now. So
yeah.
it's
bad.
it's-
And morale is very
Wow.
low in
Yeah.
the police department.
Yeah. Another quick question here. Let's talk about another hot topic is the reapportionment. Any thoughts on that? The 6 at large, 2 in the west, 2 in the east.
I think that's too complicated, and it doesn't reduce the size of the Senate. And
Okay.
that's what I said. I've said publicly. The size of the Senate needs to be reduced,
Okay.
and we need to have districts. That's
Okay.
what I strongly believe. And
Oh.
each senator elected from a district, making that senator accountable in the district.
Because that's a way to save money. I mean, if you went from 15
Yes.
to 11,
Yes,
Yes.
you
that's
definitely-
85 times 5
right
over the
right.
next 100 years. That's a
Right.
bank of money right
And
there.
remember, 85, that's the current salary, which we would reduce
Okay.
and make it more equal to other jurisdictions.
Jurisdictions.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Plus, then they have monies that are allocated for their staff and,
exactly
and travel.
Shrapnel and all of that.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
floated.
Another thing too here is, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but mental illness. Any thoughts on that? A lot of people think that we need to have maybe a hospital, a facility that can deal with mental patients, a place that they can go to. You guys
Get treatment, get
get
care
treatment,
for.
get
Yes.
care. You guys for that?
Yes, and as I told you, when I was a judge over 15 years ago, it's a revolving door that I found, and it was always the same excuse: we don't have the money, we don't have the money. I was just in a meeting about 6 weeks ago with the federal officials and the local officials who are involved with taking care of the mentally ill. And for the first time, I found out that Human Services is paying millions of dollars to have our adolescents treated off island for mental illness. And then they take them away from their families. They don't come back until they're adults. So how tragic is that?
Yeah.
First of all, you're spending millions of dollars to treat them away. Then they're adults and, they...
Just
the
come back here
families,
to-
they
to
come
bring them
back here,
and then
yeah,
what?
and then a lot. What
No
I saw as a
follow-up
judge,
care.
what happens is the teenagers experiment. Maybe some drug they took was laced with something else, and that may throw them off mentally. But that doesn't mean that they have to be treated
Exactly.
and kept away from their family until they're adults. But that's what's being done. So millions of dollars each year is being paid. So why don't we bring our people back and build the facilities here, have the facilities to treat them?
Okay.
But with the mentally ill, what happens is they are stabilized with medication, then they think they don't need the medication anymore. And so what we really promote is a situation where services are brought to them, where they're provided with housing in a partnership, the private and the nonprofit and the government working together, where they're provided with a place to live, or if they're staying with their family member, and then the services are brought to them, because they will not more than likely go
Come
out
out
for the services. But if a nurse or a psychiatric nurse or a regular nurse or whomever is assigned goes to the house, make sure they're taking their medication, provides them with their medication, make sure they're being monitored. That's the way to do it, not
Okay.
forcing them to go outside, which they will not generally come out to get the service.
Okay.
Plus, I understand now that they're trying to implement some type of system territory-wide where they're actually put on a computer program, all the people who are mentally ill, so when something happens to them, they can easily pull their name up, know what medication they're on, who's their family member, who they can contact, and some system
Right.
to monitor them, because we see them all over the place.
And it's getting worse.
Yes, and they're the
Getting
homeless.
worse. Yes.
They're veterans who, have mental illness or drug addicts. So all of these, and it's these people who are really voiceless that continue. We
be
have
kinda
these-
shuffled around.
Yes, and administration after administration not caring to deal with a problem that can be dealt with and can be resolved. And that's the best way I can see to resolve it. But bring our people home and use that money here to provide the services that they need.
Okay. The one last thing I have here is my notes here is the voter registration drive. We asked all our
Yes.
candidates about that. I don't know if you guys are sort of, and I guess you did touch on that. You're out going door to door, neighborhood to neighborhood, and I guess part of that process is to make sure that go vote.
Yes.
I'm here, but on this
Yes.
day, please go to your polling
Right,
station
right.
and vote for me.
Right.
Okay, so you
Right.
guys are doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
And most importantly, to make sure people register to vote.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's surprising how many people live here and aren't registered.
Okay.
And some people lived here 15, 20 years, went away, came back, and not registered to vote.
Yeah.
So it's making sure, and then we have to fight that. Well, why should we? How
That's
do we
the- that's
fight
the-
that?
that's
Yeah, it'll be the
answer,
same
Soraya.
old
Soraya,
thing
that's
again.
the answer. That is the number one
Yes,
answer. What
yeah.
what can be the difference?
Why?
Republican, Democrats, Independents, and our people continue to
Yes, yes, yeah.
issues continue
Right.
to even more aspirate more, even get higher and higher. You know what I mean? So
I think this election is really important for people to look
we're at
at
a crossroads right now.
Yeah. The candidates, look at the candidates' backgrounds. What have they achieved? Where have they put their time and their energy?
We're at a crossroads.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
So this is
This
I
is a
think it's
turning
very,
point. This
very
election is a
change-
turning point.
Yes.
Either we're going to elect leaders who are going to lead into a new century, which is 2020. And
20.
think about that. A new decade, rather.
That's
2020 is a new
New
decade.
decade,
Where are
yep.
we going for a new decade? Are we going to still be floundering around, or are we going to have the leadership to really achieve a
To
vision?
get us where we want to go. All right.
Exactly.
Our guest tonight is Soraya Diassi Coffelt and Dwight Nicholson. They're running for the governorship here of the Virgin Islands Cup in 2018. If you guys could just put it all together here in about 5,000 words or less.
Do you want to do that,
and,
Dwight?
and then we'll just leave it at that.
Yes.
Well, basically, like Soraya has said, excellent. That basically what we're doing, we're trying to put people first, and in doing so, we're trying to take the self-service also out of public service, out of the government service. We're looking to serve the people. We have particular skill sets, that I believe that no other candidate has.
Okay.
That we can achieve what we desperately need to do in going forward in the future.
Okay. Okay.
So
Any final words from you?
Well, I'd like to remind the people that I'm a daughter of the Virgin Islands. I'm a mother. I'm a small business owner. And Dwight and I want to put all our gifts, all our talents, all our education now to help the people of the Virgin Islands. And we're sincere in our platform and what we talk about. And we would appreciate their vote of confidence.
Okay. Soup, any final words?
Soraya and Dwight, I wish you guys the best. Rastafari live. One perfect love.
Yeah, and I wish you guys the best too. Just
Thank
continue
you.
working hard and just getting the message out. And if you get in there, just please. I've been back for 10 years now, and I'm not feeling it. I'm not seeing it. And for me, I always say things are getting better when I can go out my front door and see things happening in my own neighborhood. And I
Yes,
haven't seen that for 10 years. So if you guys get in, please just try to make some improvements. I think we all need it, not just us, but everybody else that's here.
That's true.
Well, thank
But
you guys.
thank you. Appreciate the time.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, sure. Thanks
You're
for coming
welcome.
through. I just want to say real quick that this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until. This is it for us. We'll be back next week, Tuesday. I think we got another candidate lined up to be here in the hot seat. So on that note, you guys have a great weekend.
And remember, this is hurricane season, so people prepare.
That's
Again,
right.
Prepare. You can never be too prepared.
That's
Stock up
true.
on whatever you need, your batteries, your waters, your medical supplies. Again, we know people are out there right now without roofs and all the equipment that they need. So it's this is going to be a very high tension time. So just let me just kind of woosa. Just kind of woosa. Don't let me get too crazy, but just as we
exhale.
know, we still got to be active. We still got to do what we got to do. You know what I mean? So on that note, one.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys next week. We're out. Peace.
Got me feeling honey. Hey, girl, wind your body on mine. Me want you wind up your waistline. Me never know you so pretty. No, we are on the place, girl. And we are like a city. Girl, I bubble up like Lipton. The way you back it up, girl, where you come from? Girl, want the soca calypso.